Great. And another housekeeping item, if you need closed captioning, Zoom does offer that accommodation down at the bottom of your screen. You can turn that on so that you can read if your microphone or speakers or hearing is a challenge this evening. So with that, I think we will get started. To kick us off, before we introduce ourselves, I'm excited to see, can everyone see the poll results? Amy, can you see those poll results? Amazing. So folks, that we have a nice variety of educators with us here today. Excited to have some folks who are science teachers, as well as those engaged in the gifted programs at your schools, and then some student clubs or after school program staff as well. So thank you so much for being here. With that, I'm going to jump into introductions. Hopefully everyone can see my intro to Envirothon screen. My name is Haley Hoke. I'm the Natural Resources Outreach Educator at Allegheny County Conservation District. So I'm the lead on managing our county's Envirothon program. Amy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Amy Miller. I'm the Watershed Program Manager at Allegheny County Conservation District, and I'm helping Haley do Envirothon this year.
Thanks, Amy. We also online have Madeline, who is our Natural Resources program assistant, who is going to help us with some administrative items too throughout the evening. So if you see her, she's also with Allegheny County Conservation District. Again, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us. We are going to cover quite a bit of ground tonight about Envirothon. Here's our agenda, but hopefully we get you out of here early. So things we're going to touch on this evening are what is Envirothon, kind of just a general quick overview, talk a little bit about the history of Envirothon, how long it's been going on here in Allegheny County, the benefits of Envirothon, why we think as, educators and school staff, bringing Envirothon to your school could be really valuable. We're going to talk specifically about this year's Allegheny County competition, how to get started and form a team at your school, some of the rules, registration for this year's competition, and then resources for you to get started on studying and getting into the groove with your young people. If that all sounds good, I'm going to jump right into what is Envirothon. And you'll see throughout the presentation, we have photos from our own county Envirothons over the years. So what is it? What is Envirothon? It's an international competition for high school students, so grades 9 through 12, that's designed to challenge and test students' knowledge through engagement in wildlife, aquatic ecology, soils, forestry, and a current event focused on environmental sciences as a team through quizzes. So you'll hear those 5 areas of knowledge throughout tonight's presentation quite a bit. Those are the 5 areas that our students really zero in on and start studying. So since we just learned about Envirothon, I have another poll. We're really going to get you engaged here tonight to see how familiar you are with Envirothon. So I'm launching that here. If this definition and tonight's webinar is the first time you're hearing about Envirothon, let us know. If you've participated in the past, maybe at another school or in another county, or just before my or Amy's time, let us know. If you've heard about it from friends or other colleagues, or maybe this will be your first year as a coach, we're excited to hear. Give just a few more seconds. All right, looks like everyone voted. So excited to hear that we have both ends of the spectrum represented. So some folks are hearing about Envirothon for the first time, and we have a veteran joining us, a veteran coach who's participated in the past. So thank you all for being here, regardless of your previous knowledge or expertise. So thinking about Envirothon, kind of zooming out and the history of Envirothon, it started in the late 70s, actually right here in Pennsylvania was the first state to host an Envirothon event. And at that time, it was called the Environmental Olympics. And it was organized by the county conservation districts. At that time, they were known as the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, I believe. And then in late 80s, about 10 years later, expanded to be regional, so had multiple states engaged. And then a few years later, it grew to be international with Canadian teams joining, and now all 50 states participate and teams from internationally compete in our Envirothon competition. And Allegheny County Conservation District is proud to say that we've been a part of this competition for more than 40 years. We've been hosting it here in the county. And you can see some photos, right, representing those stations that we talked about. Wildlife, which encompasses mammals and birds. Aquatics, which is aquatic ecology, soils, and then forestry. So Envirothon, what are the goals, right? The first one, of course, is to promote a desire to learn about the natural environment and ecology. Next up, right, we want our young people to get passionate about stewardship of those natural resources in a responsible way. We're hoping that young people who engage in Envirothon will develop the skills required to achieve and maintain a balance between quality of life and sustaining the quality of our environment. And then finally, we want to cultivate a sense of environmental awareness that empowers youth to become action-oriented citizens, whether they end up pursuing a career in the environmental sciences, or if they are just incorporating it into their everyday for the rest of their lives. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I want to make sure I say, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Amy's going to be monitoring our chat. So all throughout, leave any questions you have. We're going to also leave time at the end for Q&A, but if you have a burning question that's related to any of the slides I'm on, please feel free to drop it in the chat as we go. Benefits of Envirothon. Why should your school have an Envirothon team? First and foremost, as educators, you might be interested to know that all of the Envirothon material is aligned with the national standards for environmental education, as well as the PA academic standards for environment and ecology. So all of the materials that your young people are studying align with national educational standards. So it can be incorporated directly into your curriculum if you are a science educator. Next up, we're really proud to say that Allegheny County's Envirothon is a way for young people to connect with professionals in the environmental sciences and natural resources sector. So really opening young people's eyes to green industry careers and opportunities for them post high school graduation, or if they're interested in pursuing additional education after high school, kind of opening up the world of what kind of jobs are out there. They do, we connect young people with folks in this industry by having volunteers join us on competition day from Fish and Boat, from the Game Commission, foresters throughout the county. So it's a really rich and diverse community of adult professionals who come and can open up and answer career questions for the young people who participate. Next up, as many of the kind of extracurricular or hands-on competitions are, this is a great opportunity for young people to develop team and leadership skills, right? So we see that happen really organically when a young person takes ownership of maybe a subject matter, or, can help coordinate their team. They're practicing communication, they're practicing working together. And so this is just a really rich environment for those skills to be showcased and practiced and developed. And then finally, something we're really proud of in Allegheny County is we are able to offer scholarship awards to our county winners, our winning teams. Last year, we were able to grow that scholarship amount for the first time. And so our first place teams won, it was $750 each. Amy, is that correct? Our second place teams each got $500 per student, and then third place teams got $250 per student. All of those scholarships are dependent on our fundraising efforts, and we're really grateful that last year our sponsors really showed up to grow that amount, and it's something that we aim to continue to offer and grow. And so, you know, if you have young people engaging all 4 years of high school, they potentially could be earning, if they're on the winning team all 4 years, you know, well over $1,000 in order to go towards whatever endeavors they have post-graduation. Next up, let's dig into, do we have any questions at this time that you have that you want to drop into the chat just about overall Envirothon? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling then. So for this year, 2024, we are excited to share that the 2024 Envirothon is going to take place on April 26th. We usually stick with that last week in April. It's a great time, kind of coincides with Earth Day, Arbor Day. So we're already in that mindset of celebrating and engaging in environmental sciences. We don't have a location determined yet, but stay tuned for where it's going to be. In years past, we've rotated the competition between county parks. The Allegheny County Parks is an incredible partner of the Conservation District. We are considering that again this year. We're also looking at other venues because we're really excited that this competition continues to grow and engage more schools. And we want to make sure we have the elbow room to accommodate everyone. So April 26th, get that date down in your calendar. What can you expect the day of the competition? What does it really look like when you, as an educator, as a coach, are bringing a team of young people, whether it's 5 students, 1 team, or 3 teams? This is what our day looks like. So we arrive at the competition venue. Registration takes place first thing from 8:30 to 9. We know that's a tight window, and we get started right at 9 because there's quite a bit to get through. So we'll have welcome notes, and we'll review rules with everyone. At the time of registration, your teams and coaches will get clipboards with their schedule, with their tests will not be answer sheets. Thanks. I'm looking to Amy for signals. Answer sheets, they'll get their t-shirts, they'll get name tags, everything they need for the competition day, they'll get at registration. So we'll welcome everyone. We'll review rules at that time for the teams and the competition, and then we jump right in before even 9:30 to the first station. Depending on the schedule, your teams might be, your school's teams could be split up, but whatever station you start at, we rotate between those subject matter stations. So there are 5 subject matter stations: the aquatic ecology, wildlife, soils, and forestry. Current event is the 5th one. This year's current event was just announced. It will be renewable energy for a sustainable future is the subject matter. And then finally, our 6th station is an appreciation station. We piloted that last year and it turned out really great. We had young people write thank you cards to the sponsors who helped make scholarships possible, and also, just sharing, celebrating what we love about Envirothon, and engaging in environmental sciences. So from 9:20 to 12:15, a little afternoon, students will be rotating between all of those stations. At the subject matter station, we'll kind of set off it was like a horn or something last year that said, okay, begin. They'll get their instructions, their test booklets, and they have, what is that? A little over 20 minutes to complete that station's test before as a team. And that can look very different, all students on a team might have studied that subject matter, or one student takes the lead, is really passionate about soils, and so they're kind of the lead for maybe the soil station, but everyone is collaborating on their team to complete that test. So after all the station rounds, we head into lunch. We do provide boxed lunches for everyone. And during lunch last year, again, we piloted having some industry professionals sit with students to answer questions. We know that this is a great social opportunity for our young people. They love being on a field trip. They love being out of school. So we definitely allow for that, you know, socialization space, getting to connect with each other and enjoy the day. But we do want to incorporate some of those career connections. And so lunch is an opportunity for that. 30 minutes for lunch. And then at the end of the day, we jump into our award ceremony where, you know, all along the way, our Allegheny County Conservation District staff have been scoring the tests and looking at, you know, which teams are in the lead. And so we announced the top 3 teams, the winners. During the award ceremony, we have speeches from our leadership, as well as we've had local representatives come to celebrate with us. And then we also raffle off some free prizes just to teams in general, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity and a chance to feel celebrated. And then we have you on the bus and out the door ready to go, ideally by 1:30. Amy, do you have anything to add to this about what the day of the competition looks like?
I do not. I don't think. No, that was a good overview.
Thanks, Amy. Cool. So moving on, now that we know kind of what the day looks like, here are the rules for the competition. I don't think I'm going to review every single bullet point, because this information is available to our coaches on our website. I'm going to show you later on how to navigate to that. But, you know, just some things to highlight, right? Young people who are on an Envirothon team have to be Allegheny County residents, at least to participate in the Allegheny County competition. If you are from outside of Allegheny County and interested in starting, how did that happen? Interested in starting a team, contact your county's conservation district. They will have, you know, if for example, you're from Butler County Conservation District will be organizing their Envirothon competition. So to participate in ours, you must be a county resident. You cannot have reached your 19th birthday by August of that competition year. And if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. We can clarify. Let's see. Something to note is that the Envirothon competition is an environmental competition, and it is typically held outdoors. End of April in southwestern PA is a tricky time. 9 out of 10 times it is raining that day, and students should prepare for that possibility. We do everything we can to have the competition outside. If it is an absolute downpour, we do move inside. But if it's misty, if it's damp, if it's just a little chilly, we're going to be outside. So make sure you communicate that to your young people. I know, you know, we will inevitably have some young people show up in flip-flops and shorts. But do everything you can to stress the importance of dressing for the weather and preparing for spring chilly wet weather. Every team must have a coach. We're going to go over coach requirements here on the next slide. No more than 5 students per team, and no more than 5 teams per school. Other highlights, let's see. No phones, right? As many academic competitions. So everything that students need will be provided to them during registration. No electronics, no AirPods, no phones are allowed to be out and be used during the competition. Coaches, you may have phones, of course. You can bring your laptop to work on grading papers, whatever you need to do, but students cannot have access to electronics. If we see them, disqualified. Cheating, of course, it's a competition, is not allowed. It will result in disqualification. The way that the tests are scored, so the winning team will have the highest cumulative score between all the stations. And we'll talk about, you know, first place team with the highest cumulative score then goes on to the state competition, where you have the opportunity to compete against other county winners and compete to be the state champion, who would then go on to compete at nationals. But we'll chat more about that here at the end. And then finally, we do use tiebreaker questions if needed on the day of the competition. Any highlights or rules, Amy, that I missed? Okay. Just to give you a quick idea, so we really can't share past tests, we can't share answers, but we're going to give you a little taste here of questions to expect. So these are questions, one from each station from last year. I've not included the answers, just to give you an idea of what the tests look like. So it's a paper test booklet and an answer sheet that each team gets. The number of questions varies. Typically, Amy, would you say it's like around 35, 40 questions? It can be a variety between multiple choice, fill in the blank, true or false, matching, and then often there are like model or kind of like model-based questions. So if we'll have like a display and you have to identify what tree, for example, what tree species is brought in, something to that effect. So there's a portion that's hands-on and interactive.
Yeah, there can also be like calls as well, so like bird calls or amphibian and reptile calls. And yeah, there's usually some sort of like plant specimens, or you know, sometimes we bring in live specimens, or like Haley mentioned, model specimens for the students to ID.
And that's something we're committed to this year. We want to increase that as much as possible, get that interactive hands-on component really amped up to keep young people coming back. So here's some example questions just for your, you know, just for some background. Forestry, for example, this one is a multiple choice question. Which group of species would be best for replacing trees in wet, sunny areas along a stream, right? And you have a variety of tree species. So I do see a question in the chat. These are really sophisticated. You are correct. So this competition, I will say, as an environmental science professional, some of these questions do stump me. So, you know, these are really high caliber exams, and you know, we certainly don't expect young people to have all of this knowledge baked into their heads, but we're also really happy that when we get to resources, any and all of the questions that are asked are based on the study resources provided by Envirothon. And so there's a ton of material to review and keep your teams busy and studying. But all of these questions come from those study materials. So the question is, are the same questions given to 9th graders as 12th graders? Yes. And that's, you know, because a team can be comprised of a mix of grades. They don't have to be just a 9th grade team or just a 10th grade team. So depending on, you know, if you are teaching a 10th grade science class, right, all your teams would probably be 10th graders, but that is not necessarily required. Great. So moving on, you can see last year's current event issue was climate change. So the current event changes every year. This year it's the renewable energy. Keeping ourselves moving. Ooh, there's a lot of text. So let's talk about getting started and forming a team at your school. So first up, coach requirements. The first question we always get is, does a coach have to be a teacher? No, not at all. Coach can be a school administrator, another school staff. A coach can even be a parent or a volunteer, as long as they are over the age of 18 and they have permission from the school, and are partnered with the school to represent the school's Envirothon team. So it could be a parent volunteer who's organizing this. Even if you're not a coach, if your teams have a coach, maybe it's a school professional, you can also bring a parent volunteer as an additional chaperone if needed. That's totally fine. Just let us know. One designated coach per team. So even if you have 2 teachers who are coaches from a school, kind of divide and conquer and make sure that one coach is representing, this team, the other coach is representing the other team, even if you're collaborating, leading up to the competition. And then if you have to have a substitution, make sure you reach out to us, right, in the event of emergency. Let's see, how to engage students. So this varies greatly between schools that we work with. Amy, there was 8 schools last year. I believe 8 districts were represented here in Allegheny County. And it varies really across all of those 8 schools of how Envirothon coaches engage their young people. So like we said, maybe it's the coach is a science teacher who's doing this as a class project with the whole class and brings whole class worth of teams, max of 5 teams. So you can only, your class would have to be 25 students or less. Perhaps you're a gifted program staff and you're doing this as, a gifted program project. Maybe it's an after school club or a club that meets during the school day. So there's a wide variety of ways to engage young people. A lot of our coaches don't start their teams or form teams until actually right now, November or December, but we would encourage you as early as possible, right? Like we said, those questions are really sophisticated and there's quite a bit of material to review. So the earlier you start, the better. And all of the study materials are posted already here in the fall. So you can start, ASAP. Recruitment strategies, right? If you have a lot of young people, if you have more than 25 young people who are interested in engaging, we've seen coaches use placement tests to kind of prioritize or select teams, teacher recommendations, right? Colleagues telling each other and partnering, essays to get young people engaged. But we see mostly a lot of the recruitment is word of mouth. Or young people who engaged in junior Envirothon, which is, what grades is it, Amy? 5 through 8?
I think it was 4 through 8, actually.
4th through 8th grade. So maybe they participate in junior Envirothon, which is a separate program that we can certainly answer questions about. And, they've come to high school and they're really excited about continuing on. And, word of mouth, siblings, engagement, etc. But if you are struggling with recruitment, that's something we can always, strategize with you on, using flyers, classroom visits, etc. And then finally, some coaches, their recruitment and how many teams they have is dependent on, do they have a van available to them for competition day, etc. So whatever works for you, there's no one size fits all. Whatever is going to work for you, your position, your school, is what we would encourage. Team requirements. So just some highlights, right? As we said, young people who are on our team must be in grades 9 through 12, and they must be Allegheny County residents. You can have homeschool, charter, or cyber school students on your teams or form a whole team of homeschool students, but they just have to have proof of residency in Allegheny County. Your team must have a team name at the time of registration. So if your school is bringing 2 teams, they can't both be, the Wildcats, right? It would have to be like Wildcats 1, Wildcats 2. So make sure you have team names in mind whenever you register those teams. This is an old date. Please ignore that month, March 22nd. Each team is limited to 5 students per team. We said that. Your team must have a team captain. So one young person out of the 5 who's going to kind of take the lead on moving the team and getting materials, etc. We said coaches can bring up to 5 teams. And then we will say that with our competition growing, each year spaces first come, first serve. So we don't anticipate this, but if we were to max out on what our venue space allows, we would close registration early. So if you know that you have a team, the students you're already engaged with, and you're ready to register as early as possible. Which brings me to talking about this year's registration. We are thrilled that 2024 registration is already open, which is really nice. It's extra early this year that we've updated it and opened it on our website. And I'm actually going to go through after this slide and show you how to find that. Our registration deadline is a bit earlier this year. It's March 15th instead of, as you saw on the last slide, it was a bit later. We want folks to get registration in as early as possible to help us with our t-shirt orders, our lunch orders, just to make sure we have everything you need and your teams have everything they need for day of. At the time of registration, you're going to need quite a bit of information. So it's good to get started now in collecting this information so you're ready to register early. Things that you'll need, of course, is school information, coaches information, stuff like email, etc. You'll need to know how many teams you're bringing and a team name for each team. You'll need to know the participant names for each team. You'll need to know their t-shirt sizes, their meal preferences, and for every participant, every youth who comes to Envirothon, we need to have a completed and signed participant information and release form. So that's going to be their general student information, a medical release, and a photo release. And that looks like this. So I have it here. It's a PDF that's downloadable on our website. This was new last year. And this year, we're really trying to get all of these collected at the time of registration. So I'm actually going to exit my slideshow at this time, mayhaps, and show you, where to register on our website. So we're now at the Allegheny County Conservation District website here. So whenever you're ready to register, you're going to come to the top of our webpage. You're going to click on Learn and drop down to Envirothon. The URL is also pretty easy if you just want to bookmark it, accdpa.org/Envirothon. So you'll see here at the top, we have a general About Envirothon page. And if you're ready to register, you're going to click over here on Register for Envirothon. We have some information up here that will scroll down past. We're going to revisit some of these other opportunities here, but down at the bottom of this page is where you're going to register. So you see Allegheny County 2024. The very first thing that you see is that information release form. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come here and you're going to download this, save it to your computer so that you can, you're going to download it, print it out, distribute it to all of your participants, collect it once it's been signed and completed by a guardian, and then scan, or upload photos of the completed forms front and back to your computer. And it's at that time that you're ready to come back to our website to finish your registration. So you have all of the completed forms saved on your computer, click next, and this is where it starts your registration. So you'll fill out your school name. We're just gonna go through this with some substitutes so you can see what this registration looks like. So right now I'm filling out school information and coach information. So you can see our meal preferences right now, the options just to get a gauge on dietary restrictions, right? Regular, typically we're offering like deli sandwiches or something, so assorted meat and cheese option. Vegetarian would be veggie plus a cheese on regular bread. If you have additional dietary restrictions, gluten-free or vegan, select specialty. And if you don't want any of those, you can always bring your own lunch. And then we're gonna say we don't need another coach at this time, but if you did have a second coach, you would click yes, and it would bring you to a second one of these pages. We're gonna go ahead and skip that. And then it brings you to your first team name, right? So we're gonna say our first team name is ACCD team. This would be your youth or your students' names. Here is participant names. So we'll say Sally. Howard is up first. We need to know their t-shirt size, their meal preferences, what grade they're in for all 5 team members. And then if you're only bringing one team, you click next. If you have to add another team up to the 5 teams, you can click register another team. See if it'll let me. Great. So we're pretending we're only bringing one team from ACCD. And this is the point where you would go and you would upload your completed and signed participant information forms. So I would browse. They've all been signed and completed and filled out by guardians. I have every student, all 5 students are in one document or multiple documents uploaded. I can hit next. And then we get to the end, make sure that you click this submit button in order to finish your registration. Even though you see thank you, you're not finished, make sure you click submit. Anything I missed there, Amy? Great. So that is our registration process. It is a bit more, like I said, a bit more in depth than in years previous, but we really want to make sure we get these medical and photo releases up top so that we're not chasing people 10 hours before competition day as we were last year. Okay, moving on to resources. So, right, you're ready, you're excited, you want to form a team, you have students in mind, they're ready to get started. Where do you go to start preparing for this competition? We have a lot of great resources. Like I said, all of the study materials are prepared by PA Envirothon, and it's all of the test questions come from those study materials. So in order to find resources, this is what the PA Envirothon website looks like, just so you recognize it whenever you get there. But I'm going to show you from ACCD's website how to get there. So again, we're in the Learn tab. We go to Envirothon. We scroll down. And we see a few different options. So the first thing that I want to share with you is, if I go to the register for Envirothon, first thing we have is an Envirothon guide. This one might have some outdated information. It is from last year, but it's still a really helpful resource for teachers. So this is developed by ACCD to get some information additional information about the competition. So this is for teachers. Other resources, you can see right here on the side, we have teacher resources. When you click this button, it takes you to that PA Envirothon website. And on this website, you have everything from, this is the home site I showed you. You'll click on station training. And for each station, there is a lengthy list of resources. So say we're ready to start studying aquatic ecology. I'm here on the page under stations training, and I can expand all of these things. It shows you the essential topics, the objectives and how they match up with the academic standards. That one's really long. Let's collapse that again. And then the reference materials list. So this is where we really get into materials to study and start utilizing. And there's quite a bit. So there's a lot that will keep you busy here. All of these links, questions could be pulled, test questions could be pulled from any of these resources. Other things, so we have our reference materials list. identification study list. So this would be species to make sure you know how to identify in all life cycles, right? And then the final tab here, learning enhancements. These are additional resources, videos, like Amy said, audio files that could be pulled from for those test questions. So that is a very long list of resources just for aquatic ecology. You can see there's a similar page like this one for all 5 stations. So you'll be utilizing these tabs primarily. So those are, let's see. So we have the teacher resource, we have PA Envirothon station training, and then the other thing I wanted to highlight is that there is a PA Envirothon app for your phone, for young people's phone. Let me see if I can get to it here. Here we go. That you can get to straight from the PA Envirothon webpage. You can download it onto a cell phone, and I have not tested it yet, but supposedly you can do practice tests and everything on it. So that could be a great tool for your teams as well. So lots of material to cover. That's why we encourage getting started as early as possible. I see a question about the oral component. That is not a part of the county competition. That is reserved for the state competition, and I'll touch on that here at the end of our presentation. Okay. Resources, good. Moving on. Oh, look at that. We're already there. So we've gone over everything for the Allegheny County competition. The first place team, whatever team wins from the Allegheny County competition, will go on and be invited to participate in PA Envirothon's state competition. So what that looks like is the first place team from every county in the state competes at the state competition. It happens really quickly after our county competition. So our county competition takes place on April 26th. You'll find out, we'll all find out that day what school's team placed first. And then right around the corner on May 3rd, that team has to make a decision about whether they're going to go on and participate in the state competition. By May 3rd, they have to register. Registration we saw. So when it gets to be that time, we can help with registration for your team, right? So you would go on the PA Envirothon website, etc. We can work with you on this if your team wins first place and wants to go to that state competition. ACCD in the past, because of fundraising, has been able to assist with the registration fee, which is around $200, and provide a travel stipend. The amount of that is dependent on fundraising. Each year, last year, Amy, do you remember what we were able to provide?
I want to say it was around, it was between $500 and $1,000. I can't remember the exact amount.
So we can assist with the expenses, right, associated with travel to the competition. But again, it's entirely dependent on fundraising. So what does the state competition look like? It's in 2 parts. The first part is an oral component, right? So this is reserved exclusively for the state competition. You don't have to worry about it for our county competition. But if you win county and you decide to go to states, the first thing you'll have to do is participate in the oral component. What this means is you will record your team giving a presentation, and that recording, right? So it's a video that your team records at their leisure between May 3rd and May 13th is the due date for the recorded presentation, giving a PowerPoint presentation on a specific like case study or scenario, right? So PA Envirothon will give you a prompt and your team has to do a presentation to answer that scenario. The thing about this recorded presentation is that it has to be done in one take. You can't do any like clip splicing or editing to the video. And that's to get as close to being in front of judges as possible. However, it needs to be one take, but it does not have to be your first take. So your team can practice and practice and practice. You can record, say, okay, take one, record, and within the first minute, someone mispronounces the word Envirothon. I don't know. You can stop and start over and record take two. It just has to be a continuous recording. So choose the best one, do multiple takes and choose the best one to submit. So you upload that, that's going to be due by May 13th. And then the oral component between May 15th and 17th, PA Envirothon will schedule with your team to do a Zoom call where the judges, while you're on the Zoom call, watch your presentation and then have like 10 or 15 minutes afterwards for questions about the case study, the scenario, as well as, about the presentation and kind of testing your team's knowledge and skills. So that's the oral component. The teams get scored on the oral component, and then they participate in the in-person station, which is very much like the county competition. You travel, this year it's in Mifflinburg, PA, so anticipate you would have to stay overnight. That'll take place on May 22nd, and you participate in stations, again, the 5 subject matter stations competition, very much like the county competition. Is that an accurate overview, Amy? Great. Right, and then there are awards at the state level. So again, I actually think 1st through 6th place, I believe, get awards, scholarship awards. Again, those are dependent on PA's Envirothon's fundraising efforts, but the top 6 teams last year got awards. And then the top team, the 1st place team who wins the Pennsylvania state competition, goes on and can compete in the international competition, which this year will be held between July 28th and August 3rd in Geneva, New York. So this year's kind of close to us, which would be great. It would be really cool to send an Allegheny County team to Geneva, New York. Okay.
And I believe PA Envirothon helps you prep for that level as well.
Great. Yes, we could always engage, we could assist with that but PA Envirothon would certainly be on the hook to assist with registration and team prep for that international competition. Moving right along here. So I mentioned quite a few times that a lot of what we're able to do with the Allegheny County Envirothon competition is dependent on fundraising. So we are trying to grow this competition as much as possible, engage as many schools in the county as possible. But a lot of what we do is dependent on how much funds we're able to raise. And so, we work with sponsors on that, but any and all assistance is appreciated. And especially when we have educators or coaches kind of helping us with that fundraising ask, it makes such a difference, right? You coaches are the ones on the ground engaging with the young people. You see the value that this competition has in their lives and how impactful it can be. And so we'll be starting that fundraising campaign here in November in alignment with Giving Tuesday is our goal. But we're going to be starting fundraising early this year. And the way that you could help with that is by following us on social media and just sharing out whatever materials we post, with your networks and maybe, if you know of folks who are really passionate about this and want to support young people getting into green industry careers, young people, youth development, and these kind of hands-on experiential learning opportunities, send it their way. But just wanted to get a quick plug for that. Okay, we covered so much ground here and we are right on time. I just wanted to recap quickly from today, looking forward, big things to keep in mind, highlights and action items. So today is when our online registration opened. So it's online, it's ready for you to register your teams whenever you have all that information we talked about gathered. We had our Intro to Envirothon webinar right now, which is great. It will be recorded and posted on our website too, and we'll be sharing it out on our Envirothon contact email list. So you'll also get a copy of it to share with, if you have colleagues who are interested. So we'll make sure you have access to that. Next week on November 7th, Tuesday, November 7th, we're having another webinar, a coach to coach training that we're really excited about. So we'll have 2 coaches who have been participating in Envirothon for many years online with us. And we have a few questions that we're going to pose to them and hear, their thoughts and their expertise on, and then have quite a bit of time for open questions from any webinar attendees. So that will be a really great opportunity to ask, those nitty-gritty questions of, I'm having a lot of trouble recruiting this year. What do you do? What's worked well for you in the past? What hasn't? How do you motivate students to, to stick around and learn about frog species? I don't know. Any questions are on the table. So definitely, if you haven't signed up for that one, please register for that on the Eventbrite. You can also find that information on ACCD's website. Like I said, late November, we're hoping to launch our fundraising. And then if you only remember 2 dates from this webinar, these are the 2 to keep in mind. March 15th is when registration closes. So if you don't have your teams formed or those participant release forms completed and submitted by end of day on March 15th, you're not competing in Envirothon this year. We're going to hold to that. So register early, get all that information, put that ball into motion right now so that you don't have to sweat that March 15th deadline. And then April 26th is going to be competition day. And once we have a venue secured, we'll get that information out to you ASAP. And then all the dates in green are what we just talked about, right? If you are the first place team and want to engage in the state competition, May 3rd is the registration deadline. 13th is when you have to finish that recording and submit that recording of your oral presentation. 15th to the 17th, you'll be on Zoom with judges to watch that presentation and answer their questions. May 22nd, you'll travel to Mifflinburg for the in-person state competition. And if you win that, headed to nationals in July. Okay. This is highlighting again just next week's coach to coach training. I'll be sending out this link and information about that after today's webinar. But if you want to register right now while we're online, here's the link and that information. And that is all I had for us tonight. So I'd like to open it up and hear if we have any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat and Amy and I can answer those here in the last few minutes that we're online. In the meantime, if you're typing out a question, I have a question for you before we end that I am going to launch here. Oop. Continue. Amy, can you see my last poll question? All right. We'd love to know after today's webinar, how confident do you feel about starting or joining an Envirothon program at your school? Let us know. Okay. So we have somewhat confident and not too confident, but definitely want to learn more. I'd 100% encourage you to join us next week for that coach to coach training. I can only provide so much insight, but the coaches who are in the schools working with young people, they're going to be the experts on what it takes to start a team, to recruit students. That's going to be a really special opportunity. It's the first time we're doing a training like that. So definitely join us next week. You can also reach out to me individually. My contact information is on the next page, and Amy, if you could drop my email in the chat, send me an email. We can hop on a quick call and talk about, what your concerns are, I'm happy to do a school visit to talk through logistics and share any resources one-on-one too. Right. Any other questions before we wrap up this evening? Amy, do you have anything to add?
I do not. You must have done a great job. People don't have questions.
We'll see. Yeah.
Now, I do encourage people to come to the coaches training next week. I think that'll give you a great idea of how the coaching goes from their end. We can tell you the logistics on our planning end, but hearing it from them is probably most helpful.
Absolutely. And we're excited next week. The coaches, we have one coach who does this as a is a science teacher and does this as a science class project, and then another coach who has done this as part of the gifted program at their school. So those are, two different perspectives, and so that'll be really valuable to hear, contrasting or differing strategies. But all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. Again, reach out with any questions you have, and we hope to see your names under the Envirothon registration for this year. Have a wonderful evening. All right.